and good evening. Welcome back. I'm Natalie and you're back on Plannercraft. So, we're going to be doing a bit of work with some text. I'm going to be working in Illustrator for this one, but you can work with most of the vector design software. So, if you want to work with this in Affinity, you're going to want to use the same warping technique that I showed you a couple of weeks ago now, I think.
Deb says hi.
Hi Deb. And hopefully you can hear me okay. I feel like I'm being a bit quiet tonight. Don't know why.
Linda says good evening.
Oh, excuse me. Good evening, Linda. So, hopefully you've all had a bit of a snack. And you're settled down and ready to play. So, I was thinking about a text design that we can use.
Carol says good evening too.
Good evening. So I'm just going to type my text, normal text, okay? And I'm going to go, most people rise and shine. Natalie. Caffeinates.
Natalie needs 2 cups of tea,
Well,
multivitamin, and a squash before she can even get out of bed.
yeah, caffeinates. And hopes for the best. So that's the sentiment I'm going to be doing for a t-shirt. So you can all have a good giggle at that one. I'm definitely the tea drinker. Okay, so when we do something like this, first of all you want to pick out which words are going to be like your focus words that you want to have as your main feature. So obviously the caffeinates is going to be big and bold. I'm not sure I spelled that right, but hey ho, we'll get there eventually. So let's go for something a bit different. Let's get my eyes and my ears around the right way. Do you know, it doesn't look right either way. What? Caffeine. Yeah. Sometimes you just have those things. Your rise and shine is going to be kind of your next one. So again, I'm going to put that in a different font. So most people rise and shine. Natalie caffeinates and hopes for the best. So we can end up probably putting a few little bits of steam and things with that we can kind of add in. But first of all, let's get our text going.
You could make it Natalie bigger as well, so then you could customise it so whoever's name you could put your name here or such.
Yeah. So if you were a tea drinker, I could say that you Ian instead, or
Carol or Deb.
Yep. So let's start with the caffeinates. Can you just check that spelling for me? Because I'm like, it doesn't look right whichever way I type it.
I have no idea.
No, as in actually check it on spell check. It should come up really saying that it's wrong, but you know, it could just be me. So in Illustrator we have the ability to actually narrow down font by font type. So if we go into filter, we can actually say what type of font we're looking for. So we have sans serif, so that means no pokey out bits at the end. Serif with like curved serifs. Then you've got slab serifs where we're going to have those straight edges.
CAFFEINATES or ED 21.
Okay, I've got it right then. E-N, E-I, E-I.
EI.
E-I. Then we've got a handwritten font. We've got calligraphy. Monospace, where it's literally like a letter occupies a block and those blocks all got up against each other. You've got handwritten in the sense of it's going to look a bit more almost like kiddie-like writing. And then you've got your decorative. So if you're going for a feature word, chances are you're going to want to select decorative.
Yeah. Carol says she doesn't do tea or coffee, so it'll have to be wine.
What would that be? Carol...
Intoxicate.
Intoxicates next to the best. That's a bit harsh. Lubricate.
Says hi, who's related to the pod. Inebriate.
So I'm going to go for this one here. And next thing we need to do is we need to make it big. So I'm not going to get too tied down to actual sizes at this point. I'm going to focus more on design, but as that's going to be kind of your feature word, if you make that the biggest and then everything else kind of scales down from there, and then we can go from there. So once we've got that word in, we can start to play with if we're going to do swooshes, if we're going to do things like pinching and pulling. But what you may find that will help you more so is if you start to put the framing around it in terms of the other words. So the rise and shine we're probably going to want to put in the same font. So if we press and hold Alt, drag, let go of the mouse, let go of Alt in that order in Illustrator. It's round the other way in Affinity. But in Illustrator you need to keep that Alt key pressed right to the end.
Linda says I need at least 2 cups of coffee in the morning, but right now I have a lovely glass of wine.
So we have most people rise and shine. So usually rise and shine is like a saying. So you could put that in like inverted commas if you wanted to. So if we go rise and shine like so. Which again I think is quite funky. And it also means that we've got kind of a bit of inspiration there for where we might put our steam later on.
Could you curve that though so it's like an arched one, so you rise?
Yeah. Yeah, so we can make it look like a sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
We then need to have an alternative font. So this is going to be kind of the sensible font. So you would either go for a plain sans serif or a serif font. Keep it nice and kind of sleek and simple. So most people, and at this point we can go back to our filters and we can say okay, I'm going to go for a serif font, and it's going to change the list that we can choose from. So I do like how you get like a little preview for all your fonts, so you can kind of see straight away roughly what you're going to get. And you want something that's going to have a similar character width to your decorative text, so it doesn't look like you're going from something really thin to something really wide, because that can look a bit wrong. And I'd also avoid using an italic font at this point as well. You're going to see that there's some that have like similar names, but if you hover over them you can generally see which bits are changing, and it's all about the baseline with these two. So I think I'm going to go for that one, and obviously this is going to go a little bit smaller. Press and hold shift to keep it in proportion. So most people rise and shine. And we can have Natalie. And hopes for the best. So straight away there's nothing that's really like obvious as to what shape you could go for. So if the Natalie was down here, you could almost see that that's like a coffee cup, so you could do like a handle over here, and that's all part of the design. You flow the text and so forth. But because it's the other way around, we're going to pop that in there. We're going to select all of that text, and for now we're just going to align that centre so that we can see roughly where things are going to go. It's also another one where you might want to do your distribute so that you have your match space in between, so you've got nice even spaces. Okay, so we've got our spacing right. So now we can start to go, okay, so rise and shine, like Ian said, we could do as an arch. So you have a couple of ways that you could do this. If you're working in Affinity and all you want to do is just arch your text, then what you would do is draw your arch first and then use your text on a path tool and type it onto your curve. If you're in something like Affinity Photo, you can warp your text to get it to follow that arch. And if you're in Illustrator, Cold or Inkscape, you can do either of those options, so they're both open to you. So, what should I go for? Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Didn't you put the thing as warping? So
Yeah, I was going to go and warp this one, I think, first of all. So, I'm going to go into Envelope Distort, which is in the Object menu, and I'm going to go with Make with Warp, which sounds like we're going to go off and do something with the Starship Enterprise.
Look at that, it's putting an arch in.
Yep, it puts an arch in as the default. So straight away you can see that you've got this kind of arch design that we can then use. If you want to make it bend more, then you're going to increase the percentage there. If you want it a bit less, you're going to bring it somewhere between here and the midpoint. If you want to make it curve in the other direction, you're going to take it past the midpoint and down here. So if you want to make it into a U rather than an N. So we'll do it that way. So with our rise and shine, maybe a little bit, oh, not much, back there. Now your distortion is where you can actually start to put a little bit of perspective on it. So you can do horizontal and bring either edge forward. I'm just going to try and drop that back in the middle. Or we can do vertical where it goes a bit mad. So if you wanted to do something like the text at the beginning of Star Wars, then that's how you would do that. Other sci-fi shows are available. I'm going to go through them all tonight. So I'm going to go OK, and that's going to apply that envelope. Now, a really important thing to note is when we are doing things where we have warp effects like this, at this point, if we were to export that to SVG and send that to our machine, it's going to still see it as text in a straight line, because that envelope is just an appearance. So it's like a filter that's put on top, but it doesn't actually change what's underneath. So what you do need to do is convert it to curves once you're happy. But at this point, what I would say is just leave it like that and just carry on and do the basic tweaks for the other bits first, just in case there's going to be times when you're just going to want to tweak, and it's easier to tweak it if it's still with the envelope as opposed to having converted it to curves. So let's make the Natalie a bit bigger. And again, I'm pressing and holding shift to keep it on proportion. And the caffeinates, I definitely want to have that bigger because that should be going to the edge of our arch. And the and hopes for the best can be slightly smaller. So this can make our most people look a little bit odd. So it could be that we end up offsetting it to one side, or we're going to end up building some kind of design around here to make that text sit. into the design rather than looking like it's just plonked on top, which is what we want to avoid. Now, because we've been moving things around to scale it, just quickly do that alignment to center, just so that you're making sure that each time you are working on the next stage, you always kind of go back to that neutral point. So with our rise and shine, it would look really cool if actually we kind of put that in like a sunrise. Now you've got two options. You could put an arch underneath, and that could have your Natalie in there. You could do it so the arch goes around the outside of your text and back underneath the Natalie. You could take the Natalie and everything else down so that it's just literally just got the rise and shine. In actual fact, I think on this occasion, because we're working with quite bold fonts, that's what we can do. If you're working with something that's really fine, your best bet in terms of your HTV is actually to knock that text out of a solid shape. So when I do the sunrise here, it's actually quite a good idea to put your fine text on a solid background shape, and it's going to adhere better to your fabric. Okay, so I'm just planning whether I want to go round the outside. Shall I just do it and let's see? Yeah. So I'm going to start with my pen tool. I'm going to go from the middle point, click and drag outwards. If we press and hold shift, it's going to lock that handle, and we're going to take it down, and you're going to see that it's going to give you quite a few tips in terms of where you're aiming. If you can try and keep your points on some sort of level in terms of your handles to your points, like this angle here of the 135, then generally you're going to find it easier to alter that shape. But I'm also conscious that I want to make sure I'm down far enough that I'm going to be fitting in underneath here. Now you don't have to get this right first time, and indeed if we go and just press V, so that's going to go back to just selecting that object, we're going to use that half a stroke to replicate and turn it around. So I'm going to flip it around so that we're lining that stroke rather than trying to fill it in the middle. I'm going to press and hold Alt and drag a copy out. We're then going to mirror it. So in the properties panel you can see that you've got flip horizontal. So we're going to mirror it like so. Now at this point you could be going, well, that doesn't quite look very arched. Don't panic just yet. So I'm going to press and hold shift. I'm going to select these 2 points in the middle. Try not to get your text as well. It's going to be a bit tricky. There we go. So with those two handles selected, what we want to do is actually join them together. So if we go up to the top, it gives you the option for connect selected endpoints, and that's going to take those 2 points and go, I'm going to join the dots. So now we have 2 points, and this is why I'm showing you with the handle here, that are right on top of one another. Now what I would say is select one and delete it. It's going to look like you've just dropped it and it's gone, whoop. That's okay, because we're going to click on our little smooth node up here. We're going to press and hold shift again. If it's going to pay, there we go, so that we are back at 0. Now let's sort out these 2 endpoints before we go too much further. Let's take those up a little bit. Now we're going to select one, and this is where you're going to want to use your keyboard. So the keyboard's very good for where we need to move an object a certain amount. So I'm going to press and hold shift, and I'm going to count the number of moves that I do with the keys. So I'm going to go right once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So now I'm going to come to this end. I'm going to do the same again. So once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. There we go. Now we can sort out our handles so that they're going to look a bit more arched. Behave. Come on. There we go. So now we should have a nice smooth arch. And all we have to do now is actually close that gap. So if we go back to our pen tool, we're going to click on an endpoint, and then we're going to go across and click on the other endpoint. You're going to see that the little icon changes to have a little circle in the bottom right of the little pen tool. So when we do that, it's going to join the dots, and that's now a closed shape. So now if we turn and the colour back to the fill, you can see that we have a solid shape. Now before you start getting into doing things like subtracting text and whatnot, I'm going to send this to the back. In there, you can see it's now dropped down to the bottom. I'm going to take my curved text, and let's make that so that we can fill that in white. So let's see if it'll be good. Come on. You know you want to. It's like, nope, don't, because I'm in an envelope. Come on. It's definitely not liking me today. Come on. Ding, ding, ding. Why is it not liking the colour today? Come on. So I'm going to double click it so that I can get into isolation mode, and when we do that, we can actually get inside that envelope. So the reason everything else greys out is at this point we can't click on it, because isolation mode literally ignores everything else on the mat. It shows you there greyed out as a preview, but you can't accidentally click on it. It's a bit like when you use lock in Canvas. So you can see it's there, but you can't interact with it. So now we can change that fill to white, like so. And if we double click, we're going to go back to normal. So there's our rise and shine. Now we can go, okay, I quite like the curve. The curve is, you know, sort of right, but I hate these pointy bits at the end. So if we press A, you're going to see that you have these little dots in the corners pop up. But where you have a smooth mode, there isn't going to be a dot there. And what those dots do is they're really clever. So if we drag that dot back towards the centre, you can see that it's actually going to round off that corner for us. So there's one idea, that we have our rise and shine like so. You could do it so that it's going to go round underneath it, and there you go, proof of the pudding that, you know, where I was saying that at the moment all this is just an appearance. Even Illustrator just sees it as straight text. Okay, so rise and shine. Now at this point we might go, actually I quite like that curve, and I think that most people should do it too. If we go back to our envelope distort and make the warp, you can see it remembers the same amount of curve, but what's weird is because this text is so much bigger and longer, it's going to be slightly different angle, so we're going to drop that down a bit because we just want it to go over this curved hump here. We can go OK, and we can move that down. So at this point we might go, well, I'm just going to nudge that way. And how does that look? I don't like the fact that it's doing this up and down because we've got the descenders and ascenders, and it's like, no, 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 no. So let's edit the text, and we'll put it all in capitals. So all I've done is just type most people, and you're going to see that as I've done that, it's warping it in our background here, because we're working with that text inside that envelope and it's always live. So now we can double click back at that and we can drag that back over there. Not bad so far. So we've still got our Natalie that kind of still needs a home. So it's whether we end up putting it up in this section here, or if we can do something else with a banner. Now, I'm tempted to do some kind of a banner. So I'm going to leave that flat. Our caffeinates, I wanted to have a little bit of fun with. So, if we go to Object, and whereas before we did make with warp, let's show you with make with mesh. And meshes are interesting because you can have much more control over how they're going to work for you. So straight away it's going to ask you how many rows and columns you want to divide your mesh into. Now what I would say is, as a beginner, keep it at 4x4, because basically you're learning at this point how that text is going to react to what you do. As you get more confident, or if you have a trace design or a sketch design that you're trying to copy, then you'll want to change those to suit your individual design. But starting with 4x4 is a good start. And we're going to go OK. So you can see it's divided it into halves and quarters in both horizontal and vertical, and that means that then we can start to play with all these individual points. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and let's tuck these out of the way for a minute, just so we can kind of just see our caffeinates. So hovering over our little mesh here, you're going to see that you've got little points. Now if it's good, come on, let me get to the mesh. It's going to be annoying now. I don't want the text, I want the mesh, thank you very much. You know that layers panel? If it's playing up like this, that's when you can go, right, there, okay. I'm going to go in here. And go, right, I want that envelope there. Not the text, that envelope. It's going to be annoying now. Come on. Now what you don't want to do at this point is go and put that envelope back over the top. So if we go to undo, and undo, and back to where we make the envelope. Let's redo it. I'm going to get back to mesh. Okay. It's not wanting to. Come on, let me get hold of them. Okay, I'll start in the middle then. No, it's still not going to have it. There we go. So that is just using one point in that mesh. So you can see straight away how much more control we can have over our text. So we can go, okay, it's early morning. Natalie's going to be a bit wobbly until she's got the caffeine. And we're going to pull centre line out here, and let's pull this point up here. You can start to go, okay, and stretch that out that way. And you're going to get to know, as you practice, how far you can push these things. So if it starts to look like the shapes are kind of joining up in the middle, especially with this font here, where we've got these thin strips, and that's your incentive to say, actually, that's not the right direction to take that point in. So if I bring that over here, and you can see in here that we've got this kind of wonky bit here, and the T looks like it's gone completely looped here. That's saying that's not the way to take that. So if we take it that way instead, you're going to see that that looks a lot better. And finally, we can take this point up here. So we're mirroring what's over here, and that's going to pull out that way too. And we can do the same down here. So we pulled that out very slightly down there, so it's got like a slight curved top bottom line. So now zoom back out, and we can go, okay, now that we've done that, that's going to fit a bit more up there, and then the anti-trip rest is going to go up there. Now again, because we've done all that movement and all the warping, align it to the centre, and you're going to see that probably that a lot of things are going to kind of do a little bit of a jump, because even when we're working with meshes in particular, it's really hard to keep that mesh as a symmetrical shape. So you are going to find that that centre point will shift slightly anyway. So I'm thinking some sort of banner here would be quite nice. I'm going to go back to the centre point again and click. I'm going to come down here and curve it, because I want to have a slight curve. Now we can see that straight away it's going to start putting that fill in. So what I want to do is I'm going to click down here. We'll sort that bit out after we finished. So then we're going to go and press V. Then we can sort out this handle here. So this handle we're going to take right back towards the node. That's going to give you that nice straight edge, like so. If we swap around that colour so that we can see that line, and we can do the same as what we did before. So duplicate it, then flip it, over the top we go. Now this is where you're going to want to zoom in, because we want to select both of those points. Let's try and get those so they're a bit more touching rather than overlapping. And we want to join those two together. So at the moment it's being a bit daft. I can see what's wrong. It's picked up the text. So you just press and hold shift and just deselect that text, and then you'll get your path back. So connect those. Now we're going to zoom back out, and then we can go and play with line width. So in Affinity you're going to want to play with the pressure setting in the stroke panel. In Illustrator we have a whole tool that is specialising in the line width tool, and this is where you can select any point and you can make it wider or narrower. So I'm going to make this bit wider, but whatever you do there you also want to do over here so that you're keeping it nice and even. If it looks like it's going a bit thin in this middle section, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to increase that too. So again, just going to widen that way, and then we'll zoom in. So where you can see something like this going on, try not to worry too much, because otherwise what you can end up doing is you're trying to concentrate on the wrong bit. So hidden away in here, if I just go back to my A tool, just need to get to that node there. There we go. And we're just going to drop that over the top when it's going to behave. Come on. This is one of those ones where snap is annoying. There we go. So line width. We're going to take that line width and we're going to and zoom out. So over here it's just dropped down a bit, that's okay. You can drop that there. Come on. Let's lower that down. Oh. Make sure that you don't have the other bit selected. So
Sounded your computer being on the line.
Yeah, computer's definitely been on the line. It is a little bit dopey today. So, anybody think I was making it work hard earlier? I was actually, but yeah. I've had it right. Well, not had it writing the book. Don't think they've quite got that advanced yet.
No, you can use drag and text, so you can just tell it what to do and it'll write for you.
Yeah, I don't think it would cope with that and publisher running. So I'm going to do a tail.
That's improved quite a bit now.
And again, don't worry about the fact it's filling in. I'm going to swap that round so that we've got a stroke instead. And I want to make that stroke black. Okay, and we can do the same again. So at this point the line width is only an appearance in the same way that our warps and meshes are only an appearance. But you don't want to be too eager to convert that to curves, because as soon as you do that, all these options that we're playing with for changing the line width go away, and we don't want that.
So you lose your ability to edit.
Yes. I'm going to take that one, I'm going to flip it and flip it. going to take a copy of the top of my banner. I'm going to press A to get to the nodes. Make sure that we've just got the one selected that we want. Now be aware when you're doing this that your line width here is going to change, because much like the pressure tool in Affinity, it's going to just scale down that line width that you've already set, rather than going, actually she does want that bit of the line and that bit of the line. It's not clever enough yet. I say yet, it'll get there. And we can put that on a gentle curve if we want to, just to make it feel like it's actually laying on the banner. So just freeze. Oh no, not that one, thank you very much. And we're going to take that amount of blend right down so it's really gentle, and then it's going to look like it's sitting on her. So now let's take these two tail bits, because I'm still not happy with those, and we're going to increase those. Now okay, it's going to drop this one off all the way over here. Don't worry about that, because first things first, I want to get the scale right. So if we put our two endpoints here, it should look like they're equal to that. That's going to drop down, so it tucks into that line there, and that one's going to be level like that. Okay, so we're getting there kind of. I'm going to group those for now, because then we can start to tweak this back in this way and in this way, so we can decide whether we want to have it fit so the tails fit in like so, which I think in some ways looks better. So with that kind of there, then we can ungroup that for now. So we know we need to make this a little bit bigger so that Natalie has a bit more room. Natalie's always short of room. There we go. So if you need to tuck these bits back in, or to adjust them in any way, then what we can do is use your little A button, and then we can adjust that back to the line there, and I'm going to shrink that back so that it got a nice perpendicular line here, and do the same here, back to there, back to there. Okay, not too bad. So let's move my caffeinates down. So, rise and shine obviously needs to have like the sun rays. So this is nice and simple. And what I would say actually, before I start doing the pen tool, let's put my rulers on. So that's Control or Command and R. And I'm just going to drop myself a guide to the top of my text and just leave it slight gap sort of above it so that I can see kind of a frame. I'm going to do the same for down this side here and down this side here, so that as I start to build in my different elements, I have a frame that I can work to. So let's start from here. I'm going to take this point up to our guide, cross, back down and join like so. I'm going to give that a fill of black for now. So when it comes to designing cut files, I find it much easier to design in black and white, because if it looks good in black and white, it'll look good in colour. So again, I'm going to take it from that top corner this time, back down to there. Try and do like a similar width from compared to there to there. Back up to our guide, and this time want a bit more of an angle, because you want these rays to look like they're getting wider as they get to the edge. I'm going to close that. Okay. So far so good. We're going to drop in another one here, down to here, down to there. So make it wider and close. Now up at the top here, what you can do is we can actually go, okay, if we look at this face here, that's going to be a bit wider than what our rest of our rays start at. So if we go like so, and close, then that's looking really quite funky. And I'm just going to take that to there, to there, to there. And anything you think just needs to move, just nudge it with your keyboard. And of course, because we've done it to one side, we're going to select all of those pieces, click and press and hold Alt. Mouse is going to play up. Go away, mouse. Right. Now with that copy, we're going to flip it around, position it up into that top corner. And just nudge that text back that way. There we go. Most people rise and shine. Then we have Natalie caffeinates and hopes for the best. So at this point we can go, okay, we can either keep that in the banner, or we can go and add our swirls in and let the swirls be the banner. So I'm going to hide these for a minute, just in case I decide I'm not going to use them. Haven't decided yet, but if we hide them rather than deleting them, we can always come back to them. And we can just do that using the little eye icons there. Now I want to build some like swooshes of steam. Now if you've got graphics tablet and it's connected, then you could use that. But for now, because I haven't, it's in the other room, I'm going to do just some swirls here. So again, all I'm doing is just using my pen tool to build a swirl. We can stretch that if we need to. We can alter this bit in here so that it looks a bit more curvy rather than pointy. We can bring that bit down in there. That's better. And now we can do a line width. Now you can either do this manually like I was doing before, or you can apply a brush. So let's go to brushes, brushes, and I want to go to open brush library. Now what I would say about brushes, you do want to go careful about the types of brushes that you use, because you want to keep them so they are clearly black. If they have like shades of grey or translucency to them, they're no good for what you want to do in terms of a cut file. So if we go to calligraphic, for instance, and we open these up, all these are all black, so you'll have no difficulty in putting those. So if we apply that, you can see it's going to apply as a brush. If we were to do something like cat's tongue, however, you can see that you've got different bits of grey, so that's no good for what we want. It'll look brilliant printed, but it's never going to cut in a month for Sunday, so I'm just going to undo that. So we have what they call elegant curls. So these ones are really useful for if you want to do like ornate frames. They're probably a bit too fancy for what I'm doing, so you can see it's going to take that shape and it's going to apply it along the stroke. And that's how we can get around doing things that don't need to be centered onto our path. And you can flip it round if you need to have it point the other ways, things like that. But for now, I'm boring and just go and put one of these on. And let's get rid of the curly bit. Come on, be nice. My mouse is going loopy, sweetie. Doesn't like it. Okay, so remove brush stroke. Do it that way. Do it through the big panel. They'll get there eventually. And make sure that you put it up big enough. So that's the other thing to note. If you are doing a width profile and it's not showing enough, the chances are it's just that your stroke's not wide enough. So make it bigger. And we can flick that round, so you can decide whether you want your seam to have more body at the bottom or if you want it to have more body at the top. And to be honest, the best thing you can do in some cases is actually kind of have a mixture of the two. So, mouse, behave. I'm going to have that on there. I'm going to rotate it round very slightly, just so it kind of fits more around me, Natalie. I'm going to duplicate that. Can you please stop doing that, Ian? You're driving up the wall.
What? What?
Right, so now we're going to rotate this and we're going to resize it. So press and hold shift, resize it down, and we can pop that there. And we're going to flick around that stroke, so that's going to be kind of a bit more solid towards the bottom. I'm going to take a copy of that. At this point, we can flick that one round that way, and you can choose whether you want to pop that somewhere in the middle. I'm going to go back there, and again I'm going to resize it just because it's just a little bit too big to be fitting in there. And we're going to take that straight down so that it's not quite so big. So you can see that's going to scale our stroke. Not too bad. And I'm going to do a little bit of an S curve just in here. again, you want to be able to do a similar stroke. So first of all, I'll just make it bigger. Let's use our line width tool, so in the middle I can make that bigger. I can make that go to a little point down there, and we can decide whether we want to make that bigger or smaller. I'm just going to pop that like that. And let's drop down that stroke width just a little because it's looking a bit chubby. There we go. Not too bad. One more for look. And then I'm going to have to go. So let's pop that. And like that. And like that. So again, we're just going to alter that so it's a little less extreme. Pop that back over there.
Carol said, do you need some coffee beans?
I think Ian does.
Ian's been up since 4 o'clock this morning.
I think he needs propping up in a corner somewhere. Okay, so down to any point there, and make it nice and narrow there. And again, we can then scale our stroke as we need to. So a bit wider, don't be too stingy. There we go. Once you've got a group of 5 shapes, what I would say is use them to your benefit. So instead of keep drawing stuff, actually pop those so that you're using duplicates and then they look more like a whole design then. So we want to make our text look like it's steaming. So if it's all in a straight line up here, that's not really going to work. So just start by just jiggling about that bottom line a bit. So if you need to, scale up your shape or scale it down in the case of this one up here. So up with this one. Make that a little bit larger. That's going to pop back there. I quite like having that touch, so that can go like that. Now we're going to take those, nice and easy, group, duplicate it, and flip it. So if we look at this side, it's a little bit poking out there, so we'll do a little bit poking out here. And Natalie can always move and possibly shrink it up. There we go. The other advantage of designing with Natalie for a name is it's probably one of the longer names out there for fitting into spaces, so anything shorter than that is always going to fit.
Charlotte, because it's slightly longer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or your Catherine's.
Yeah. So I'm going to pop that in there, and let's get another one in there, and again we'll flip it.
Give it a little moustache.
And take this long one here and we're going to scale that down. And at this point we can drop down that line weight a little too. Now just bear in mind with all these little pieces that you don't go too fine that it won't adhere. So things like this steam down here I might just tweak.
Didn't realise you were drawing a nose to enhance the caffeination.
What you like. So let's just make that a little bit bigger at the bottom. Yes, I can see it. And do the same to the other side. There we go.
Carrots, it's very interesting, especially the warp effect.
Yeah, the warping is cool. The other thing to bear in mind is that if you do things like, if you go to effect, oh dear God, oh sorry, and then you have in here lots of different stylized things that you can do. These are exactly what they say on the tin, they are an effect. So in terms of doing your warp, you're better off doing it through edit than you are through using one of these, but sometimes you just have to. The other one I was looking for is, there we go, so distort and transform, and again this is going to work over the top, so you still need to do that convert to curves. But if you want to do things like zigzags, roughen will give you like a distressed edge that you can actually cut. But zigzag, you might think that it's going like this with the text, but no, it literally goes around the edge of every letter. And you can choose whether you want it smooth, which is going to give you more like a curve.
What's the difference between relative and absolute?
Okay, relative is always going to be scaled to the size of the object. Yeah, so if you go up and down, up and down, up and down, it's going to scale with it. If you go absolute, that's the be all and end all. And so if you say that you want a size of 2 mil, your zigzags will be 2 mil. Exactly. Is the theory. And obviously the larger your number goes, the more zigzags you get. But if you go smaller, you can see a bit better what's going on. So if I do roughen, oh excuse me, you can see that you get like this distressed edge to it, which probably actually looks pretty much like me in the morning, a bit rough. Rough around the edges.
Wouldn't really get to see it.
So I'm going to take that, and just because we've got this big solid bit at the top, maybe just shrink that in just a little actually. And we're nearly there. I'm nearly happy. I'm going to make that white. I'm going to create a box. And that box is going to be black. I'm going to send it to the back. Then I can resize it as needed. Then you can decide, are you happy with the way the name fits? If you want to take these swirls out at the top and make your name bigger, you can do. Try and make it a little less nose-like.
All you do is make it more.
It's not a nose. just going to tweak this bit in here as well while I'm here. And because that one's quite a big difference, I'm just going to duplicate and flip.
I think Carol's the only one left awake in the class.
Oh dear, they all gone to sleep. Oh dear. Go on, wake people. Rise and shine. Or caffeinate. Okay, so with that, there you go. What you would need to do next is convert everything to curves and you'll be ready to go. Just remember to delete the text at the top and just select everything. Now, this is the only thing that annoys me in Illustrator, is guides get selected. And converting you guys to curves is not a good idea. So, object. Let's break it down bit by bit, shall we? So let's do these sections first. Object. I want to outline stroke. And then you're going to see that you have a load of cut lines. Now what I would say is your next step is going to be merge where these two touch, but everything else can stay single, because unlike Affinity, Illustrator doesn't handle putting all the shapes into one object very well if they're not overlapping. So we're going to merge and we'll merge that.
Deb says she's knackered after holiday, she's off to bed when you finish.
I think so. Oh dear. So where you've used envelope distort, if you go to expand, it's going to actually set that in stone. Yeah, apply it. So, oh, my mouse has gone loopy.
It's getting tired like you.
It needs new batteries.
Don't
Like me.
It's just had new batteries put in it.
I've been dopey. I'm going to expand that one. So then that should. Oh, I missed me most people. Most people don't miss the most people. Come on. And expand that one. There we go. So now all we need to do is just take that type and create outlines, which is in type.
And this is very interesting, so I don't have Illustrator, gives me a chance to see a different program in action. And Carol said in reply today that Big Brother has already beaten her to it.
So yeah, in Affinity you kind of need Affinity Photo to go down the route of warping your text. If you've got Vector Styler that I know I need to do another stream on, then it works in almost identical way. It's got a few extra twiddly bits that you can have fun with. If you are working in Inkscape, you can do it through that too. That has the ability to warp, as does CorelDRAW. So it's only Affinity that's, lagging behind a little at the moment in terms of that. But for most things, Affinity is very good. And the version 2 is on its way, but when it does get here, there will be a fee payable. They just don't know what yet. There's an upgrade fee, and hopefully it will have trace and warp by then. Fingers crossed. Other than that, it's like we'll be off to Vector Styler, won't we? Which looks quite funky. I quite like that. I'm still tempted with putting that bottom bit into like a coffee cup or something. That would look quite cool, wouldn't it?
Run
Long
out of space,
t-shirt.
right? Yeah, so you're running out of space on your t-shirt.
Yeah. So ideally you want to go no more than sort of like the proportions of an A4 in terms of, you know, your sizing. So if we put that up there, yeah, you kind of got that much that you can go up to. So not much. Especially knowing what my coffee cup's like. So, take care. Have a great weekend. Thank you for sitting and watching, and hopefully you're still all awake. And what I would say is have a go, have a play. So even if you only have Affinity, then try and use Affinity Photo to do it. If you really can't do that, or if you haven't got Affinity Photo and your software won't do it, if you go and download Inkscape, it's free. It just needs a little bit of patience. So take care for now. Any questions?
Carol said thanks, Natalie, and Linda's waiting for Nat to turn up at around 11, so she's off to watch the Italian Job.
Is that the old version or the new version?
Doesn't say.
And I'm not sure I can quote it without getting a strike against me. Okay, so take care. We're off to go package up parcels, aren't we?
Maybe I might do it tomorrow now.
Or at least do the shopping.
Yeah, maybe.
So take care. Bye.
This is the old one.
Ah.